and Shield, and many thanks for joining today's webinar. It's my honor to introduce Dr. Parag Benivale. Sir is a senior consultant Ops and Gynec from Pune and unit head and PG teacher Kamala Nehru Hospital, secretary ECOG from 2018 to 20 and president of Menopause Society Pune, National Joint Secretary IMS from 2017 to 18, National Website Editor FOXY from 2011 to 17, Peer Reviewer Journal of Ops and Gynecology of India from 2012 to 17, Chairman of Young Talent Promotion Committee of FOXY, also Master Trainer for Adolescent Friendly Health Services, conducted many workshops for WHO, UNFPA, GOI, and FOXY, co-editor of Gynecological Manual on Adolescent Girls and Young Women, Yearbook of Ops and Gynecology, contributed many scientific articles to books and journals, delivered oration and guest lectures in over 120 FOXY societies, and recipient of Dr. C.S. Don Prize at 21st All India Congress of Ops and Gynecology in Navi Delhi. So with this, I request Sir to begin with today's webinar on menopause. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Prachi. Good evening, all. I bring greetings from Menopause Society, Pune, and it's a pleasure to be talking to you on one of the major challenges in this age group of women, that's vasomotor symptoms. At the outset, let me thank Mr. Balaji and Team Shield, who've been the academic partners for today evening's webinar. Oprah Winfrey has said the greatest discovery of all times is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude. And ladies and gentlemen, we as healthcare providers for women have to change our attitude towards managing menopausal women, and how we are going to see in next 20 minutes, where I'm going to talk about management of vasomotor symptoms. Female life expectancy in our country has changed. Before independence, women used to live only for 35 years, and it is estimated that in the year 2021, women will live up to the age of 72. Average age of menopause in India is about 48. This is as per the Indian Menopause Society statistics. It also means that 1/3 of a life of a woman will be spent in a hormone depleted menopausal phase. And this is a phase which poses a lot of challenges. Unfortunately, this is one major public health problem which is not recognized by us. So I think time has come that we look at this pandemic rather seriously, because in the years to come, we are going to deal with more and more women who are troubled by menopausal problems. We are all aware about the physiological changes that take place during the phase of menopause. The hormones which regulate the life of a woman, who have beneficial effects on the bones, on the cardiovascular system, on the reproductive organs, start depleting, and then they lead to a lot of challenges, which includes insomnia, mood swings, hot flushes, and more serious ones, that is urogenital atrophy, osteoporosis, and atherosclerosis. This frequency of symptoms varies from woman to woman, but vasomotor symptoms are the ones which really bother the Indian women. And this is a statistics which was published by our own Dr. Meeta, who was president of Indian Menopause Society in the year 2012. So what are vasomotor symptoms? We know that hot flushes vary in frequency, intensity, and duration, and they can last from few minutes. They can vary from 1 to 2 per hour to 1 to 2 per week. They usually involve face and neck, but they can manifest at night as night sweats and disturb sleep significantly. They may be associated with palpitation, anxiety, irritability, and panic. All in all, it definitely has a negative impact on the quality of life of a woman. So why vasomotor symptoms? And this slide is self-explanatory, where the hormonal depletion, the hormonal changes lead to development of vasodilatation resulting into hot flashes. And this is as a result of altered thermoregulatory response. The hot flashes can continue to bother women years after years. So women who attain menopause in their 40s can be bothered by vasomotor symptoms for next 15, 20, 30, or even 40 years. And this at times definitely impacts life of a woman. The Indian data suggests that now, this was again a study presented by Dr. Mehta in 2012, and they found out that vasomotor symptoms were the commonest symptoms seen in Indian women, followed by psychological symptoms, physical symptoms, and genitourinary symptoms, and not to forget the weight gain. The scene is not very different in non-resident Indians, where it was noted that the women staying abroad were also troubled by vasomotor symptoms. How do we grade the hot flush? So it could be mild, where there is a feeling of heat without sweating, a moderate one with a feeling of heat with sweating, and a severe one where the feeling of heat is associated with sweating, palpitation, and that many times disrupt the usual activity of the woman. The night sweats can also be labeled as mild, moderate, and severe. So women who get night sweat may not wake up, but then they notice these while getting up or when they wake up for some other reasons. The moderate ones, the women will wake up because they feel hot, they feel sweaty, but no action is necessary rather than rearranging sheets or blankets. But a severe night sweat is the one where the woman wakes up feeling hot or perspiring, and she may have to change her clothes or get out of bed and open the window because she may be sweating profusely, and which many a times requires change of clothes. This discussion cannot be complete without the modified Uncle Area's Indian Menopause Society Consensus Group Staging, which talks about the window of opportunities. So premenopausal women may develop vasomotor symptoms or vasomotor instability couple of years before they actually reach menopause, and this can go on during the menopausal phase. So we must look at the window of opportunity and treat women from this grueling problem. And of course, the added advantage would be prevention of problems like osteoporosis, etc., which can also be treated because of preventive measures taken at the right time. When we treat vasomotor symptoms, we have to differentiate it with some diseases like thyrotoxicosis or carcinoid syndrome, or we must take in detail history of some medications, which would include calcium channel blockers or calcitonin, etc. Why vasomotor symptoms are relevant? Because it is noted that women who suffer from vasomotor symptoms may also be at a higher risk of developing heart disease at a later date. They show more amount of bone loss, and they also exhibit early atherosclerosis, which make them more prone for heart disease and increased risk of heart attack. Coming to the management of vasomotor symptoms, and the treatment is determined according to symptoms and to the extent to which the woman wishes for relief from symptoms. There are certain risk factors which one can modify, and one of them is smoking. So women who smoke experience more incidence of hot flashes than women who do not. So it is prudent that women stop or at least reduce smoking significantly in order to reduce the possibilities of vasomotor symptoms. And obesity is one where women who are overweight are more likely to have hot flashes. So this factor is also something which can be certainly modified to an extent. Coming to the non-pharmacological options, because these are the options which also have an important role to play. the first and foremost being counseling. So women have to be counseled either by the healthcare provider, or if necessary, we may seek help of a professional therapist to do a proper counseling, where we encourage women for certain lifestyle modifications. Engaging in regular exercise is something which is a must. So a good weight bearing aerobic exercise for about 45 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week, is something which is recommended. Women should be encouraged to use cooling methods such as handheld fans. They may drink cold water. Wearing of layered clothing is something which many a times helps women. Of course, there are relaxation techniques which can be adopted, and women should avoid triggers such as caffeine or spicy food or alcohol or even tobacco, and avoid vasomotor symptoms to a large extent. And of course, it is important that women keep themselves away from stressful situations. What is the role of lifestyle in developing and maintaining vasomotor symptoms? Now, this was an Iranian questionnaire-based study which was published in our own Journal of Midlife Health, which did mention that women who consume dairy products, vegetables, and use of solid oils improved hot flushes, and vegetable consumption also had an improvement in urinary continence. So probably there is some relation between lifestyle variables and vasomotor symptoms in postmenopausal women, and it is worthwhile making an attempt to try and do these small little modifications in order to get relief from these ruling symptoms. Yoga has always been uh, helpful in reducing various symptoms. Of course, there are no randomized controlled trials, but definitely there are some trials which do help, which say that women are helped when they undertake training for about 8 weeks of focus time for breathing exercises and relaxation techniques. And of course, some amount of alternative medicine therapy also helps. Exercise and relaxation also plays a vital role, and it is said that exercise is hypothesized to positively affect central thermoregulation unless associated with obesity, sweating, or severe vasomotor symptoms. Coming to the pharmacological options, and hormone therapy is probably the most effective treatment for moderate to severe hot flushes which affect quality of life. A Cochrane meta-analysis of 24 RCTs, which included over 3,300 women comparing estrogen use for vasomotor symptoms versus placebo, found out that there was a significant improvement in symptoms in women who opted for estrogens. Lower than standard doses of estrogen and progestin have found to relieve vasomotor symptoms as well as vaginal atrophy, protect the endometrium, and prevent early postmenopausal bone loss. So it is worthwhile considering hormone therapy in women who are being troubled by vasomotor symptoms. So the lowest dose of hormone therapy should be initiated as a starting point. With the women should be reevaluated after about 3 months. If the symptoms are adequately controlled, then the dose or estrogen plus progesterone should be continued. If the symptoms are not adequately controlled, then the dose may be increased, or one can think of adding some other medication to it. Estrogen alone can be given to women who've undergone hysterectomy, and women with intact uterus should receive progesterone in order to protect their endometrium. It is reasonable to discontinue therapy after 6 months to a year after controlling symptoms. If the symptoms recur, we can always restart, gradually taper the dose of number of days per week. And sometimes if the vasomotor symptoms persist, then the therapy has to be continued for longer period of time. Of course, a good counseling regarding possible risks and benefits have to be undertaken. So the 3 most beneficial effects of estrogen are seen on symptom relief, urogenital atrophy, and bones. And the most effective treatment for vasomotor symptoms is the menopausal hormone therapy. And there are umpteen number of studies which mention about the efficacy of estrogen in treatment of vasomotor symptoms, and oral MHT is quite effective, and it definitely helps women to overcome the symptoms of vasomotor symptoms which trouble them. Estrogen is the primary active component of hormone therapy and is recognized as a gold standard for treating menopausal symptoms. And systemic estrogens used in MHT in India include conjugated equine estrogen and estradiol valerate. Coming to estradiol valerate, it is one of the trusted form of estrogen. It is a natural estrogen. It is safer than its synthetic counterpart. It's in micronized form, so there is increased resolution and bioavailability. The esterified form prevents extensive first-pass metabolism in liver and GIT. It can be given orally, which is quite convenient, and it is safe even in long-term use. There have been studies where the therapy of 7 years have been estimated to be safe and effective. After starting therapy with estrogen, there is definitely a change in the hot flash score. And if you notice this over a span of 24 weeks, the estradiol valerate works probably the best, followed by conjugated equine estrogen. Isoflavones do have some role to play as compared to the placebo. So when we compare estradiol valerate and conjugated estrogen, we realize that conjugated estrogen by stimulating renin-angiotensin system is associated with risk of hypertension. It is also possible with conjugated estrogen that there could be abnormal increase in blood clotting, so chances of thromboembolism are likely to be more. Homocysteine is one of the risk factors for CHD, and estradiol valerate definitely helps in reducing the risk of coronary heart disease. Other than estrogen, there are hormones like progesterone, which do have a role to play in management of vasomotor symptoms. The primary menopausal related indication for progesterone use is to negate the increased risk of endometrial hyperplasia or cancer with systemic estrogen therapy. Hence, it is recommended in all women with intact uterus. In recent years, there have been several trials which have shown progestational agents to be a reasonable alternative for estrogen for treatment of vasomotor symptoms. There was one progesterone cream which was available some time ago, and it was thought to be an excellent option for vasomotor symptoms, but the results are contradictory and the treatment of hot flushes is controversial. Magnestrol acetate was also found to be effective in reducing hot flushes. So daily dose of 20 milligrams appears to be equally efficacious to a 40 milligram dose. Medroxyprogesterone also has shown to decrease menopause-related hot flushes. Of course, not many of us are using medroxyprogesterone acetate in menopausal hormone therapy. There are certain contraindications to progestins which we must keep in mind, which include thromboembolic disorders, impaired liver function, and undiagnosed uterine bleeding. Of course, whenever a woman in her perimenopause or postmenopause reports with undiagnosed uterine bleeding, we would certainly investigate and rule out why she's bleeding and then take a call about therapy. The role of progestational agent in women with history of breast cancer is still not clear. So the recommendations regarding estrogen therapy or hormone therapy for vasomotor symptoms, and if you read this slide, almost all organizations do recommend use of estrogen. The ACOG feels that estrogen is one of the most effective treatments for menopausal vasomotor symptoms. The use of ET and HT for alleviation of hot flushes and night sweats should be reassessed yearly. This point is very, very important. So once you prescribe menopausal hormone therapy, the woman should be following up very, very regularly in order to see the effect and side effects of the therapy that you're giving. The lowest effective dose should be used, and that too for shortest possible elevated time. The North American Menopause Society also has recommended treatment of moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms with systemic ET and HT. American Society of Reproductive Medicine also endorses ET and HT. Coming to the next molecule, Tibolone, which is not very readily available in our country. Tibolone, all of us know that is a synthetic steroid which has both weak estrogenic, progesterogenic, and androgenic action. It is effective in about 50% cases over placebo. It is proposed that Tibolone has tissue-specific activity. Tibolone has been used for almost 20 years in Europe, though it is not available in the US, and even in our country, it is not very freely available. The commonest side effects or adverse effects is weight gain and bloating. There are quite a few non-hormonal therapies which can certainly be used for reducing the vasomotor symptoms, and the drugs would include SSRIs like fluoxetine or paroxetine, SNRIs, that is serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors like venlafaxine, duloxetine, which can certainly be used in women who suffer from vasomotor symptoms and who may not be suitable to receive hormone therapy. Anticonvulsants like gabapentin or clonidine also have been used for treatment of vasomotor symptoms in some patients. Coming to the complementary and alternative therapy, phytoestrogens, soya is, all of us know, is an important source of phytoestrogen, which is a naturally occurring compound with both estrogenic and anti-estrogenic properties. Phytoestrogens, we know that it can be classified into isoflavones and lignans. Soya phytoestrogen is also explored for treatment of hot flushes in women with breast cancer. All of us know that women who have hot flushes and who are breast cancer patients or breast cancer survivors, we would certainly not like to use hormone therapy in them. Isoflavones can also be derived from red clover. There is a large clinical trial which has tested dietary supplements derived from red clover, which were found to be useful for treatment of vasomotor symptoms. Black cohosh also has been tried. Of course, there are not too many encouraging results with black cohosh therapy, so it may not be recommended as a treatment for hot flushes. So when we are managing vasomotor symptoms, has the last word been said? And the answer is TSEC, which unfortunately is not available in our country. So it is an innovative treatment for menopause, that is tissue selective estrogen complex. So TSEC is a treatment which combines conjugated equine estrogen with a selective estrogen receptor modulator, that is SERM, called bazedoxifene, and it is indicated for the treatment of estrogen deficiency symptoms in postmenopausal women with uterus, in whom treatment with progestin containing therapy may not be appropriate. Coming to the beneficial effects of estrogen and bazedoxifene, especially on vasomotor symptoms, it significantly reduces vasomotor symptoms and increases quality of sleep. So the quality of life in general improves. TSEC have a protective effect against loss of bone mineral density and fractures in postmenopausal women. TSEC is neutral for breast. It improves vaginal dryness. It improves libido. It is cardiovascular system friendly. And as far as the endometrium is concerned, TSECs are neutral or antagonic. The SMART study have reiterated the fact that therapy with TSEC is definitely useful to relieve menopausal symptoms, and safety of TSEC on endometrium and breast has also been reiterated. It definitely improves sleep pattern, and hence the quality of life is definitely better. When we talk about MHT, we also should know about the drawbacks in MHT in some of the women. Endometrial cancer, breast cancers, WHO has very categorically mentioned increased incidence of breast cancer in combined estrogen and progestin therapies. Venous thromboembolism, of course, alteration in lipid metabolism, and increased incidence in gallbladder stones. And in some patients, the MHT is contraindicated. So do we have some solution for these women who suffer from not only vasomotor symptoms, but other symptoms? So we are looking at something ideal preparation, which should regulate endogenous estrogen to non-reproductive organs and reproductive organs. It should offer a good symptomatic relief as good as hormone therapy, and it should be without the risk of cancer, venous thromboembolism, and stroke, which are at times seen with hormonal therapy. So the ideal menopause solution will work well on reproductive organs as well as non-reproductive organs, where it will downregulate the reproductive organs, preventing the possibility of malignancies, and upregulation of non-reproductive organs, helping in relieving symptoms. And when we are managing women suffering from vasomotor symptoms or mood swings or insomnia in menopause, perimenopause, or even postmenopause. So this is one preparation, Estrogen 100, which may be of help to a good number of women. It upregulates the estrogen affinity to estrogen receptors in non-reproductive organs like vasoendothelium, central nervous system, and bone. So it is supposed to improve bone mineral density. It is supposed to improve mood swings, improve sleep pattern. It is expected to reduce hot flashes and night sweats, whereas it downregulates estrogen affinity to the estrogen receptors in the reproductive target organs. So there is no proliferation noted in breast as well as endometrium, and hence the risk of cancer is definitely less. There are few studies which are available for all of us to read. There are 3 randomized placebo-controlled trials. One was conducted in USA, 2 in Korea, and they were published in renowned journals. And the evidence that these studies gave us was symptoms like vaginal dryness, hot flashes, mood swings, or bone pains were relieved within a span of 7 to 14 days. Coming to the evaluation of effectiveness and safety of Estrogen 100 on perimenopausal women, and they were studied for almost a year. And this pivotal phase 3 study was to investigate the effect of non-hormonal treatment for perimenopausal women. It was a prospective randomized clinical trial which included not a big number but 48 postmenopausal women. They were divided in 2 groups. One group received the Estrogen 100 therapy and the other was placebo group. The treatment group was started for 12 months with oral administration of 2 capsules of Estrogen 100 twice a day. Bone mineral density, bone markers, weight, BMI, lipid profile, etc. were measured as baseline and at 3, 6, 9, and 12 months. And the final analysis was conducted in 42 patients who were medicated continuously for about 12 months. And it was found out that in the placebo group, there was no improvement in 78%, while improvement in climacteric symptom was noted in only 21%, as against 58% in women who received Estrogen 100 twice a day. So it was concluded that perimenopausal women may have benefit from Estrogen 100 as supplement, especially for climacteric symptoms, without any serious side effects. And this was one more study which was published around the same time, which evaluated the efficacy and safety of estrogen. And it reiterated the fact that this particular molecule definitely works well, and it can be considered as an alternative for menopausal hormone therapy, especially in women who cannot take menopausal hormone therapy or where menopausal hormone therapy is contraindicated. And the conclusion drawn with the study was estrogen 100 for 12 weeks showed statistically significant improvement in the quality of life. There were 9 different symptoms apart from hot flashes and night sweat, which where women definitely felt better. Insomnia was improved. There was no adverse event that was reported with estrogen 100, and it was found out that it is a safe and effective herbal formula that can improve women's quality of life and various menopausal symptoms. The effect of herbal extract on pre, peri, and postmenopausal women was studied, and it was published in Phytotherapy in the year 2012. And it was found out that the mean serum E2 levels did not increase, implying that estrogen 100 is not an active estrogenic compound. The mean serum FSH level also remains unchanged. So it definitely indicates that there is no stimulation of estrogen receptors when you are offering this. No toxicity was reported even with very high doses in experimental animals. And I would conclude my presentation with these recommendations by the Indian Menopause Society. These were the ones which were proposed in the year 2013, and they were again reiterated in 2020. So we must exclude other causes of hot flashes before planning a treatment for menopausal hot flashes. Grading of VMS is important to plan management, follow-up, and even for research. So grades of hot flashes are classified as mild, moderate, and severe. Moderate and severe are the ones which definitely need attention in order to improve the quality of life. Lifestyle modification may be recommended to reduce mild vasomotor symptoms, and it's a grade A evidence, and it definitely helps in women who are suffering from mild symptoms. The most effective treatment for vasomotor symptoms is hormone therapy, and this is especially true when the symptoms are moderate to severe. Low-dose oral contraceptive pills can be used in the menopause transition phase for relief of symptoms. So women in perimenopause who are bothered by vasomotor symptoms may be offered low-dose COCs if they qualify to receive them. Non-hormonal prescription agents may relieve vasomotor symptoms, but they may have their own side effects, and these can be considered where hormone therapy is contraindicated, and complementary and alternative treatment should be advised with caution as the data is still insufficient, especially in women who are suffering from moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that excellent talk, sir. So there are a few questions in the chat box. So if you allow me, I will read out to those questions to you, sir.
Sure.
Okay. The first question is from Dr. Vandana Gandhi, and the question is, what is the role of obesity? It has been assumed that E2 is stored in adipose tissue, so obese women have less hot flushes. So what is your opinion?
Right. So it was theoretically believed that women who are obese will probably have more amount of estrogen in them, but it is not sufficient enough to relieve the vasomotor symptoms or symptoms because of estrogen deficiency. So women do suffer, even they may be obese or they may be lean and thin, but they do suffer because of estrogen deficiency. So obesity will not have any impact on this.
Right, sir. Thank you. The next question is from Dr. Alka Mathur, and the question is about 54-year-old woman. She is post-hysterectomy. She had a stroke also 1 year back, and she is suffering from severe hot flushes. a very busy businesswoman. So she's on various medicines because of her strokes. So can we use vaginal estrogen or any other treatment guidance for this particular patient?
Okay. Now, looking at the patient's history, I menopausal hormone therapy with hormones, I mean, would with estrogen would not be of first choice. We can certainly think of giving something like estrogen 100, or there are other herbal preparations which do give some amount of relief. Uh, Estrogen, rather than vaginal, there is estrogen gel available which can be considered, but here we must counsel the women because she's definitely is giving history of stroke, so she has to be counseled really well. When we are using estrogen in the gel or patch form, where we are expecting the liver to be bypassed, but here the patient should be well aware that oral estrogen can have an impact on thromboembolism. So for this lady, my first choice would be giving something like estrogen 100 or other uh, non-hormonal therapies, or one can think of giving her SSRIs or SNRIs if required.
Right, so thank you. The next question is from Dr. Shirina Parvin. Her question is, a patient is on estradiol valerate for postmenopausal woman, of course. So how should we follow this woman, and does it require to do USG every 6 months?
Okay. Now, whenever we are offering menopausal hormone therapy, first we have to investigate them, find out whether they are fit enough to receive menopausal hormone therapy. So the general investigations that are recommended, which are also very much there in the Indian Menopause Society recommendation, is that there's a blood workup where we get the hemoglobin, urine, uh, ultrasensitive TSH, we get a sugar test done, and lipid profile. Of course, many a times we are offering D3 and B12 levels also to women, because we do find a lot of women deficient with vitamin D and B12. Uh, a good transvaginal ultrasound is also important. It will tell us about the size of the uterus, the endometrial thickness, and the status of the ovaries. Uh, a pap smear should be done before starting the therapy, and it is to be repeated every 3 years. If you're doing HPV, it can be repeated every 5 years. Mammography should definitely be done before you offer the lady menopausal hormone therapy, and then it should be repeated ideally every year, but in the Indian context, it can be repeated every 2 years. Of course, it is important that we teach the woman self-breast examination. Once you start hormone therapy, the first follow-up would be after a month, where we assess uh, and we try and find out from the woman whether she's experiencing some issues. We do her baseline weight, we check her blood pressure. The next follow-up would be after about 3 months, where we look at the compliance and we keep on monitoring her clinically. The investigations should be repeated every year, especially the blood workup and the transvaginal ultrasound. So in case she experiences some amount of spotting or bleeding, one can think of doing an ultrasound earlier, but we can otherwise do it every year. Here, since the uterus is intact, we have to remember that we will give her uh, progesterone support, and one of the progesterone support which could be an intrauterine device containing levonorgestrel. So LNG intrauterine system is something which can be inserted in women in order to protect the endometrium. So this is how management has to be done.
Thank you, sir. So can I take another additional question?
Sure.
So there are a lot of questions actually.
Sure.
So this woman is with rheumatoid arthritis and with vasomotor symptoms. So what is the treatment guidelines for this particular patient?
Okay. Now, depending on the other comorbidities, whether she's eligible to receive menopausal hormone therapy, we need to decide what kind of therapy is to be offered. So if she qualifies to have MHT, I think MHT should work well for her. Otherwise, she can be offered other non-hormonal options.
Right, sir. So the question is regarding estrogen, and the question is if woman doesn't have any symptoms, but can it be given to prevent the bone loss?
Okay. Estrogen, there are studies which says that it is helpful in preventing bone loss, but I think whenever we are talking about prevention of bone loss, a good counseling has to start. Now, let me tell you that in the Indian Menopause Society this year has recommended, counseling of women right from the adolescent age group during their reproductive career, that they should have a good adequate intake of calcium in diet and 30 to 45 minutes of exercise per day, which will help in protecting the bones at a later date. So we are recommending the youngsters to invest in their health for better bone health in the postmenopausal phase. So there are quite a few options which we can think of. In the perimenopausal women, we can certainly think of giving calcium with vitamin D, and lifestyle modification has to be continued. In women who suffer from premature ovarian insufficiency, are more prone for osteoporosis. So these women, if they qualify, they can be offered menopausal hormone therapy as a preventive measure. But estrogen can certainly be offered to women because if you look at the contents, they can very safely be prescribed to women for prevention of long-term bone loss. But if you look at other options, they are definitely better as compared to estrogen 100.
Right, sir. So there is a comment rather than a question from Dr. Manju Ambekar, and the comment is, in Australia we use oxybutynin patches or tablets for severe sweating.
Right.
Your
Yeah, I'm happy to see Dr. Manju Ambekar, who was my registrar when I was a houseman about 30 years ago in the Government Medical College in India. I'm happy to have her comment also. In India, we do not have oxybutynin patches or available, and they are not, being used here in India. Manju, thank you for being here and thank you for your comment.
So yes, sir, thank you very much. So that was the last question. So thank you very much. I don't have any additional comments in the chat box, questions as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So Dr. Shubhada, who's Secretary of Menopause Society Pune, is here. Hello, Shubhada. I think she's muted. All right. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Menopause Society Pune, thank you for being here. And thank you, Team Shield, for being the academic partner for today's webinar and getting all of us here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your support.
Yeah, thank you.